right this way. Move in closer, ladies and gentlemen. And let me introduce Zena, the miracle woman of the ages. She sees, she knows, she tells you all the innermost secrets of your past, your present, and your future.
Nightmare Alley from 1947 was a mysterious noir film that tells the story of the rise and fall of the character Stanton Carlisle, a carnival performer who manages to make it big as a mentalist performer. But he's one who rises to the top through deceit and manipulation. And you know as well as I know in these old films, that type of character is always going to take a fall at the end. Well, film also stars Joan Blondell, Coleen Gray, and Helen Walker. And this film was excellent. I really enjoyed it. It was a little bit darker than I'm used to, very edgy, and had a Twilight Zone feel to it, but I really liked it. Thanks again to my friend Florida Greg for recommending awesome films like this. So the film opens up with some alarming music during the credits, and then we're at a carnival. And there's a circus barker there talking about the geek on display. Now in the audience we see Tyrone Power as Stan. Now I caught him recently in the film Mark of Zorro, and he looks and acts a lot different here. Now, I'll get into that a little more later. Well, he goes and talks with Zena, played by the lovely Joan Blondell. And I caught her not long ago in the film Topper Returns. Well, Stan gets into his outfit for a show, and he shares with Zena how he loves everything about the carnival life. Yeah, he really gets into this stuff. Now he introduces Madame Zena, who will read the fortunes of people in the audience. And we see their gimmick they've figured out of gathering fortunes that people write down, and Zena will burn them dramatically on the stage. And then from below, there's this semi-drunken character, Pete, actor Ian Keith, who kind of cues them as to what they need to say. He's writing the messages out on a chalkboard for her to read. Well, Stan leaves and goes to talk to another performer, Molly, who's played by lovely actress Coleen Gray. Now, I've seen her in a number of other films like The Killing and Kansas City Confidential, and he talks to her about the special gimmick that's used by Zena and Pete and how there's this secret code that the two of them share with one another. Well, Stan really wants to figure this out. Now, Bruno, the strongman, arrives. He's played here by Mike Mazurki. He's an actor from a ton of other films. He usually plays this big thug or tough guy, and he's definitely a big guy. And he's apparently Molly's boyfriend here. So Stan takes a hike. So now on the road later, Stan is driving in this big truck with Zena, and he wants to know what's the deal with this secret code that she uses with Pete. And, she's not really ready to share. And Pete here, he's kind of drunk, but he sees that, he's trying to find it out and tells him, hey, you got some nerve trying to figure that out, So the secret is safe for now. But the next day, Zena sends off Pete to get some food to kind of sober up. And while he's gone, Stan continues to pursue about this code and how maybe he and Zena could make their own act of it. Don't rush me, she says, and leaves. But we can tell that maybe she'll give in and finally tell him what the deal is. Now later, Stan visits her, and she's there playing with these tarot cards, and one seems to indicate that something bad is going to happen to Pete. But Stan, at this point, he doesn't care. He just wants to learn about that secret code. So later, Stan is out, and he gets some booze, and he's going to use this booze to try to manipulate Pete. And I don't know, it's probably not a good idea. But a side note here, I couldn't help but think that while watching this scene, Pete sounds an awful lot like Christopher Lloyd. I don't know. What do you think?
Just a sip here and there. Zena's tipped everybody off.
Well, Pete gets a few drinks in him from Stan, and he completely livens up and talks about his past and his performances. I mean, it really lights up once he gets a few drinks in him. Stan just sort of, listens, but he leaves him with some dangerous alcohol and just kind of whistles as he walks off into the night. Well, the next day, Molly comes running up to get help, as Pete apparently won't wake up. Zena finds him and, unable to stir him, realizes he drank wood alcohol that she had used to burn the prop envelopes. And, well, she sobs away, but Stan just sort of quietly sneaks away. Now we cut ahead in time, and now apparently Stan has learned how to do the mentalist trick with Zena, and he knows all about the secret code system. Now, Molly helps explain all of this to Bruno and to us, the audience, through this exposition that Stan and Zena have apparently worked out their own secret code for the show. Well, the local marshal shows up. He's played by James Burke, who I've seen in some other films like Good Guy with James Cagney. Anyhow, he's suspicious of the goings-on at this carnival, including the geek fellow eating live chickens, things like that, and also Molly's immodest outfit. Very modest for 1947. Stan quickly shows the marshal that the outfit is necessary due to the electrical gimmick that they do, and they even give a demonstration, but, he's still just not buying it. So Stan goes up to him, and this is when he starts doing the full mentalist act, the Sean Spencer pseudo-psychic thing. And it's impressive how he uses his abilities to sway away the marshal with saying all of the right things.
Someone near to you is jealous of you and your ability.
Son, that's the gospel truth.
After he's gone, Stan goes to look for the others, and Molly is there. She's super happy and thanks him, and they kiss, but it's all wrong, she says. But he says he's got nothing going with Zena. Oh, Stan, you cad. Well, they both head to a local diner where all of the carnival friends are, and they all praise his mentalist abilities. Now, things start off fine, but then Bruno arrives, wondering where Molly had been, and then this big fight breaks out as they kind of figure out that, oh no, there's a romance that has started. The entire scene is tense, but notice how mellow the diner music is, in contrast to the scene.
You trying to kill him?
All he's got to do is touch my hand.
Well, after this altercation, I guess, hey, Stan and Molly got married. But Stan seems to be thinking only of profit and business schemes, while Molly, well, she's just there and just dreamily going along with him on these adventures. And soon enough, the two of them are out doing their mentalist act together. They seem to be doing it pretty well, and things seem to be going well for them. They've got the audience fooled. But there's a lovely lady in attendance, a Dr. Lilith Ritter, played by actress Helen Walker. She's watching it, she sees it as the gimmick that it is, and she's suspicious. And she tries to fool Stan, but he sees through it and is able to deceive her as well. Well, a little later on, Stan is summoned to meet with this Dr. Lilith, so he goes to meet with her. And there's a little bit of a, uncomfortable chemistry between the two. She seems more of the analytical mind, kind of sizing him up, trying to figure out what his racket's all about. But he holds on to the mentalist gimmick, he's not budging at all. And she'd like to see him again to kind of learn more about what his act is all about. So she goes on to meet with another patient. But then a little later in the day, Stan just sort of sneaks back in and admires her system of how she records each session with these special vinyl records. I think it was vinyl. Pretty crazy. I didn't even know you could record to vinyl. But anyhow, she's outraged that Stan found out about the system and that he snuck back in. But he's only seeing a gimmick that he could use in his show. Basically get some background information from people through their therapy and then use it in the show. But she won't have it. She snaps at him, tells him to get out. Now, to be honest, at this point in the film, we see Stan is slowly turning more and more into a creep. So it's around here, about halfway through the film, we really start to wonder what's going to happen to his character, and is he just building up for a massive fall? Well, later Molly brings Stan back to their room, and who should be there but Zena and Bruno, who were there for a visit, and there seemed to be no hard feelings. Things seem to be going well, but then Zena starts playing with those tarot cards again, and then she sees the Hanged Man in the future for Stan. Uh-oh. But, he just doesn't buy it. Stan goes for a massage and then freaks out when the masseuse has a bottle of alcohol that he's using on his back. Kind of gives him a flashback to the earlier murder. The music gets great here, almost reminding me of old Twilight Zone. And it's at this point Stan goes back to this Dr. Lilith Ritter to get some emergency therapy. And she assures him, it's totally okay that Pete had accidentally died earlier from drinking the wood alcohol, and, Stan feels a little bit better. We cut ahead to another show. Stan is doing his mentalist gimmick, and he's talking to the old woman, Mrs. Peabody, actress Julia Dean, whose daughter had recently died. Now, she was a patient of this Dr. Lilith. He makes it seem like he's communicating with the dead, but then he collapses, maybe a little dramatically. Now, Mrs. Peabody, back at her place, seems totally convinced of Stan's gifts and is ready to give all of her money to him. Ezra Grindle, meanwhile, is there. He's this stern old fellow who senses a scam, and he's played, by the way, by Taylor Holmes. I've seen in other films like Kiss of Death with Victor Mature. He was also, incidentally, the voice of King Stefan in Disney's original Sleeping Beauty. It's kind of cool. Anyhow, we cut to Stan and Dr. Lilith, and they're on this boat at night. We find out that this character, Grindle, from earlier, who was out to get Stan and prove him as a fraud, well, Stan was able to use his gifts to bamboozle him as well. And this Mr. Grindle is giving him a gob of money so that he can build his tabernacle for his gift, wanting only in return to see his deceased Dory again. But somehow, visually, which is quite the challenge for Stan. How is he going to do this? But he and this Dr. Lilith plot and scheme together. So now they're working as a team, but, unless I missed it, I don't think there was a romantic item at this point. He's still faithful to his wife, but instead these two are just partners in crime. So they depart, and Stan heads home to his wife. Now he's puzzled over how he's going to do this spirit trick, but then he thinks of an idea, and he proposes that Molly pose as this dead Dory. She won't have it, and she's ready to pack her bags and leave. But Stan gives this interesting, impassioned argument in defense of this gimmick, saying that it's only mentalism, not really spiritualism or anything to do with God, and his angle in all of this is really fascinating to watch. I mean, he's almost like he's justifying using his gimmick and his gift for the betterment of others and so on. Some crazy stuff.
Listen to me. I'm no good. I never pretended to be. But I love you. I'm a hustler. I've always been one. But I love you. I may be the thief of the world, but with you I've always been on a level.
Well, he meets with Mr. Grindle at night, and they have a talk about spiritual things together, and it's here that Stan has arranged that he will see an apparition far off of Dory, the one that he really wanted to see again visually. And as this Mr. Grindle is on his knees praying for forgiveness, Molly, who is playing the part of this spirit, she's had it. And she breaks character, saying she can't do it anymore, and she runs off. Mr. Grindle sees all the trickery that's taken place, and he grapples with Stan, who just throws him down to the ground and leaves. Now, the gimmick has fallen apart, and he runs off. He meets with Dr. Ritter, and you know what? With about 15 minutes left, I'm actually not going to give any more of the film away, because I think the film takes a wild twist, and you need to see for yourself how things turn out. But wow, this one almost felt like a Twilight Zone episode. I really enjoyed it. I don't want to say much more, just that you have to watch to see for yourself how things unfold. It may not quite be what you anticipated. I think it was really very well done. So some closing thoughts about the film. Nightmare Alley was a 1947 film noir, and it was directed by Edmund Goulding, with a screenplay by Jules Furthman. It was based on a novel by the same name by William Lindsay Gresham. I think the novel was a little bit darker. Maybe they made it just a little bit brighter for the cinema. Now, the story behind this film is that star Tyrone Power read the novel and apparently wanted to move beyond just being the romantic swashbuckler roles that he was well known for, and requested that Darryl F. Zanuck, the head of 20th Century Fox at the time, that he buy the rights to the novel so that he could play this less than noble lead character. Now, Zanuck didn't think this would make any money, and he was right. The film was a flop, but what a shame, as this film is remarkable. I mean, understandably, it's not cheery, and there really isn't anyone here that you're rooting for. And it's very clearly a rise and fall narrative for the central character. Now, I'll admit, I haven't seen many Tyrone Power films before, yet. I'm getting to them. I did review Mark of Zorro a few weeks ago, and I really enjoyed that. But what a contrast to go from that cheeky, grinning, heroic Zorro character to this, a manipulative carnival worker, climbing his way to the top, using others on the way. He's not beyond murder, ripping off the gullible, and then ultimately taking a fall. He's a scheming charlatan, and like I mentioned before, you don't really root for him, or anyone in this film for that matter. And sometimes with these old noir films, there's a redemption arc, and while the film maybe hinted at it here and there, let's just say ultimately things don't go so well for the character Stan. As mentioned, this felt to me like a Twilight Zone story, in that as we watch the story unfold, it's pretty clear where things are going to go. And considering our protagonist starts his climb to the top with murder, and how we have the supernatural element of tarot cards bringing that foreboding message of doom, a little more Twilight Zone vibe, and it's not necessarily going to be a happy ending, but it's still captivating to watch. And you do really want to see how things will eventually resolve. And honestly, I get a big kick out of the mentalist gimmick. It's always struck me as one of the most improbable things to do, but I still love watching it anyway, even if it's something like this. And I was a huge fan of Psych. I used to watch those, and I love those wacky situations with Sean Spencer where he would use his gifts to solve crimes. So I can't help but pick up on that vibe. Even since this is an older film, though, from way before Psych, it was still kind of fun to see that gimmick being used here. The film features 3 very talented actresses, and it was notable to me how their characters are so different from one another in this film. I mean, you have Joan Blondell as Xena, who's one of these more worldly, edgy characters. And, I've seen Joan Blondell in other films like Topper Returns. And honestly, while I liked her more comical, quick-witted side from films like that, a little more funny in her character, in this film, she just seems like a woman, maybe more darkened and jaded by being in a carnival for so long. Contrast with that Colleen Gray's character of Molly, and I love how she's completely different in that she's this young, sweet, trusting character who's loyal and dedicated to Stan until pushed a little too far by his schemes. And then finally you had Helen Walker as Dr. Lilith Ritter, who was this shrewd, analytical character who sees through all the charade, but then wants in on the action as well. I mean, all 3 were so different in their portrayals here, and I loved how there was a different interaction with all of them with Stan, and all contributed so much to the story. I just thought the 3 of them were great. The carnival scenes were apparently shot in Del Mar at the San Diego County Fair. And from what I read, for a lot of the carnival scenes, to add more of an authentic feel, they had numerous sideshow attractions, all performing in the background. And yeah, it looks good. The carnival sequences, they're bustling, they look busy, they're fantastic attention to detail. And having been to a few carnivals and state fairs, I think they really captured that very well, that kind of feeling of chaos that goes on with places like that. Now, I do believe there was a remake of the film in 2021, but honestly, as my 3 fans know by now, I prefer to explore the old classic gems of the past, more so than the modern remakes, but just wanted to make a note of it. So that's Nightmare Alley from 1947. It was an excellent, dark study of the rise and fall of a carnival mentalist. It featured some amazing performances, and it's really one worth checking out.